On this vote, the yeas are 234 and the nays are 188, with 4 answering present. The resolution is adopted.
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering.
America.
Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest newsmakers of the week. Rashida Tlaib has been censured by the U.S. House of Representatives, 234 members voting in favor, including 22 Democrats. We're going to break down the language and the basis for this action by Congress. We're going to look into some of the arguments on the floor and how one particular argument by one member of Congress really typifies my response to all of the hypocrisy and all of the race baiting we saw from the left in opposing this resolution. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of everything, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. And while you're here, if you like what you see and hear in the video or any of the other videos that I have here on my channel, I'm going to ask you to please smash that thumbs up button, like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that good stuff, because it feeds the YouTube algorithm. These videos that I've been doing recently have been getting greater visibility, and it's all because of you out there commenting, sharing, subscribing, all the things that I've been asking for, and the response has been so great, and I really thank you for it. If you've been a subscriber of the show for any amount of time, you see a lot of the language in this resolution that we're about to talk about. You already knew the background of it. Now, you may remember from earlier in the week, there was a prior attempt to censure Rashida Tlaib based upon broader, more generalized language. That failed, that was tabled, they didn't take that up. Now, this is a new resolution from Congressman McCormick of Georgia with much more tailored language and specific allegations within them. Let's go through it right now. As I said, this is a resolution to censure Rashida Tlaib for false narratives regarding the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack on Israel and for calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of it all. This was, as I said, introduced by Congressman McCormick, as well as Congressman Trey Niels, Darrell Issa, and Jeff Van Drew. The resolution starts out with very generalized language, sort of giving the 30,000-foot view of why this has to be brought before the House. Whereas Israel has existed on its lands for millennia, and the United States played a critical role in returning Israel to those lands in 1948, immediately following the Holocaust, in recognition of its right to exist and as an indelible signal of our solidarity with the Jewish people. Whereas Israel is a critical ally to the American people and our strategic national security interests in the Middle East. Whereas the people of Israel, including American citizens, were brutally attacked on October 7 by Hamas. Now we're going to get into some more of the specifics, and this should sound familiar to you. Whereas Representative Rashida Tlaib, within 24 hours of the October 7 barbaric attack on Jewish citizens of the State of Israel, representing the deadliest days for Jews since World War II, defended some very brutal actions by Hamas as justified, quote, resistance to the, quote, apartheid state. Whereas Representative Tlaib's October 8 statement claimed that Hamas's October 7 attack on the Jewish people was partly attributable to United States security aid provided to Israel. Whereas on October 18, 2023, Representative Tlaib continued to knowingly spread the false narrative that Israel intentionally bombed the Al-Ali Arab Hospital on October 17 after U.S. intelligence, Israeli intelligence, and President Biden assessed with high confidence that Israel did not cause the explosion. I'm going to stop here for a moment because these last 3 paragraphs should be very familiar to you viewers out there who have been hanging with me for the past month or so, because we've talked about exactly this language and exactly these moments in previous videos.
Flashback.
I grieve the Palestinian and Israeli lives lost yesterday, today, and every day. I am determined as ever to fight for a just future where everyone can live in peace, without fear, and with true freedom, equal rights, and human dignity. Oh, isn't that nice? The path to that future must include lifting the blockade, ending the occupation, and dismantling the apartheid system that creates the suffocating, dehumanizing conditions that can lead to resistance. The failure to recognize the violent reality of living under siege, occupation, and apartheid makes no one safer. No person, no child anywhere should have to suffer or live in fear of violence. We cannot ignore the humanity in each other. As long as our country provides billions in unconditional funding to support the apartheid government, this heartbreaking cycle of violence will continue. Again, where's the condemnation of the attack by Hamas? There's plenty of condemnation for the US and Israel together, which, by the way, she doesn't even have the dignity to mention by name. Let's start our analysis with this tweet from Rashida Tlaib. This tweet was in reaction to news breaking of an explosion at or near a hospital in Gaza. The reports initially coming out from Hamas was that Israel had bombed a hospital, killing hundreds of civilians. And in response to that news, solely sourced by Hamas, Rashida Tlaib took to Twitter to say, quote, Israel just bombed the Baptist hospital, killing 500 Palestinians, doctors, children, patients, just like that. I wonder how she knew who the victims were. There was no other reporting at that moment when she posted this tweet saying who were among the dead. She just embellished this on her own in characterizing what's happening. So that's a pretty big assumption made by a sitting congresswoman based upon a single source, that being from a terrorist organization. But it turns out that this is not true. If you go further down the post, you'll see not one, but two community notes. One of them says that using geolocation from the live stream of the explosion, it appears a misfired rocket was launched from inside Gaza, and provides a link to that analysis. So the next day after the tweet, Rashida Tlaib was part of a rally outside of the Capitol, and she continued to push the now debunked story about this hospital.
Continue to watch people think it's okay to bomb a hospital with children.
So a sitting member of Congress, in the face of reporting from her own government, is siding with information provided by a terrorist organization and continuing to spread their message. Let me say that one more time so it really sinks in. A sitting member of Congress, in the face of U.S. intelligence to the contrary, is spreading information propagated by a terrorist organization.
End of flashback.
So now that we're all caught up, and if I do say so myself, good job by me in picking out all those points.
Pat on the back. Pat on the back.
Whereas, on November 3rd, 2023, Representative Tlaib published on social media a video containing the phrase, quote, from the river to the sea, which is widely recognized as a call to violence to destroy the state of Israel and its people, to replace it with a Palestinian state extending from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Now that was in a tweet that I'm going to put up on the screen right now. And as you see, there was a video that was included with it. I just have a still of it where Rashida Tlaib is putting out a message that President Biden and the Biden administration supports unaliving a whole race of people. Wow, that's some pretty strong accusations right there. Also sounds like rhetoric that we would be hearing from a terrorist organization. Whereas Representative Tlaib doubled down on this call by falsely describing From the River to the Sea as, quote, an aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence, which is what I was just alluding to earlier. But the resolution says it much better than I did. Whereas Representative Tlaib has repeatedly displayed conduct entirely unbecoming of a member of the House of Representatives. Resolved that Representative Rashida Tlaib be censured. And that's it. That's the language right there. That's the case that is laid out against Rashida Tlaib. Now, I'm going to take a little break here, and when we come back, we're going to look at the unhinged rhetoric coming from Rashida Tlaib's defenders on the House floor. And after that, we're going to look at one statement from one member of Congress in favor of this resolution that basically sums up what I feel about this whole situation perfectly. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. As you'd imagine, the squad, Rashida Tlaib's running buddies, had a whole lot to say about this resolution. And I think it's best for me to just play them out, and then I'm going to give a little response after each one. First, Cori Bush.
For 1 minute.
St. Louis and I rise today in opposition to this censure resolution, and then also in opposition to the reckless manner that people in this House speak when they don't realize or don't care that they put targets on the backs of actual people, most of whom are black and brown, because of a lack of care and a lack of understanding and a lack of seeing the humanity of folks who look like Rashida Tlaib.
Playing that race card.
Interesting that this resolution has nothing to do with race. It has to do with being responsible for your rhetoric and your actions. But okay, let's see where this is going, shall we?
It's outrageous that my colleagues are blatantly attempting to silence the only Palestinian American representative right here. It's outrageous, but it's not surprising. And let me tell you, it's not surprising because this place is where 1,700 members of Congress, this elected body, enslaved black people. It's not surprising because they thought it was right.
And away we go. Okay. So we're making this a racial stand, and we're talking about African-American people. I thought Rashida Tlaib is Palestinian. But I guess that Cori Bush is just lumping a whole bunch of different groups together just based upon their skin color. Because that's not racist or nothing. This is unsurprising. This is the go-to from race baiters like Cori Bush, who have nothing substantive to say about Rashida Tlaib's rhetoric. That's her buddy, of course. She's just going to back her play.
It's not surprising because this is a place where members continue to claim that the insurrection on the Capitol just appeared to look like a normal tourist visit.
Calm down, all right? Take a deep breath. Come on, calm down.
We're just going to throw all sorts of misdirection in here, talking about January 6th now. Well, what about the rally that happened a few weeks ago where Rashida Tlaib spread that misinformation about the hospital that was bombed? She said it was done by Israel. Evidence and intelligence shows with high confidence that it wasn't. Where is the decrying of that quote-unquote insurrection? Seems like selective outrage to me, doesn't it?
Surprising because this is the place where our black and brown staff members repeatedly speak of experiencing racism and sexism, Islamophobia, get pushed off at elevators, xenophobia, and more right here in this workplace. This is the place. And let me say this. She mourns for the 1,400 Israelis.
The gentlelady's time has expired.
She mourns for the 10,000, and she will not stop. No
the gentlelady's time has expired.
Ceasefire now. And she takes the death threats that you all send, that they
The gentlelady is no longer recognized. The gentleman from Maryland.
They had to cut her off and she's still going.
The desire to save lives is greater.
Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
That's what I said.
Whew. Oh, man. Okay. So that was Cori Bush. Next up, Jamal Bowman. Looks like he made it here on time and didn't need to pull a fire alarm.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this resolution. First and foremost, can we please stop misrepresenting Representative Tlaib's words? She does not want to kill Jews. She is not in support of Hamas. She is speaking as someone who is the only Palestinian American in U.S. history to serve in this body. Without her voice, we would lack even more empathy for the people of Palestine.
Now that's interesting. Do you have to be of a certain group or adjacent to a certain group to understand and empathize with what that group is going through? I don't think that's right. I think people have empathy regardless of who they are and what their background is. It's either you have empathy or you don't. To accuse the right of not having empathy for Palestinians just because they are not Palestinian or Palestinian adjacent, I guess, which I guess Bowman includes himself to be, that's just plain wrong.
We would not have someone with direct personal experience speaking against the siege that is happening now in Gaza. This body needs empathy and compassion for all people, not just people that look like the majority of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle.
Another card.
Again, this has nothing to do with her race or anybody else's race for that matter. This has to do with supporting terrorism, giving aid and comfort to terrorists with her rhetoric. Come on now. This is growing tiresome, and the more it's being said, the less of an impact it's going to have on people.
And maybe because of your lack of diversity, you lack the cognitive and emotional ability to recognize diverse opinions when they speak truth to power.
So because you're white, you're dumb. That's what he basically just said on the House floor. Is this not over the top? Is this not unhinged? My goodness.
And you absolutely need to open up your mind to other people and other experiences, especially when they are Muslim and when they are women and when they are people of color. You had a member of your party call my colleague a terrorist, and you didn't censor her. But we're having this conversation now about your interpretation of words.
Members are reminded to direct their comments to the chair.
Once again, going overtime and just righteous indignation. And finally, Ayanna Pressley.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to this censure resolution that is blatantly Islamophobic, anti-democratic, and an utter waste of time. This resolution is as dishonest as it is unproductive. Any member who denies that Congresswoman Tlaib has opposed the killing of civilians, Israeli, Palestinian, and Americans alike, is willfully ignoring the truth. Representative Tlaib was elected by voters in Michigan to do exactly what she does best: advocate for a better, safer, more just world. She leads with love, speaks truth to power, and seeks justice even when her life and that of her family and her staff are threatened. As a daughter, mother, sister, friend, advocate, and effective duly elected three-term first ever Palestinian American member of Congress, she has been a much-needed voice in an institution that has too often failed to listen. Today, Republicans are again attacking a Democratic colleague just because they don't like what she has to say.
Oh, look, a First Amendment argument. Have progressives found the First Amendment after years of demanding regulation of quote-unquote hate speech? This is a revelation to me. All of a sudden, we're finding the First Amendment and free speech, and we're going to make arguments advocating for free speech. After years of advocating for more censorship by social media companies to stop people from quote-unquote hate speech. Well, what's more hateful? Someone going online and spewing some rhetoric, or a member of Congress using the talking points of a terrorist organization, I ask you? Maybe this is a good lesson, a teachable moment, if you will, for progressives about the value of the First Amendment.
Another shameful but predictable ploy of distraction from the real traffickers of hate who are obsessed with policing progressive women of color.
Oh, I see what you're doing here. You're trying to flip that script around, trying to say that the proponents of this resolution, they're the ones that are promoting hate, not the member of Congress who is siding with Hamas. No, of course not. That's got to be the way it is, right? Because this is a woman of color, as you point out. What is it about this idea that your skin color provides virtue?
I oppose this offensive resolution for every little girl from Michigan to the Middle East who sees herself when they see the leadership of Representative Rashida Tlaib, and I urge my colleagues to do the same.
Gentleladies.
So we kind of heard the gamut from the other side. We heard First Amendment arguments that they found the First Amendment. We heard arguments about racism, how you don't have the lived experience, you're white and therefore you're wrong. We've heard all of that. And now it's time to hear from the other side in response to that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was sitting here not planning to speak at all. And then I heard words from the other side of the aisle. They were flowery, they were eloquent, they had passion, they were articulate, they were powerful, even moving probably to some.
I wouldn't go that far, but I see the point you're making. Go ahead.
But were they true? I heard about protecting speech, the First Amendment in our beloved Constitution. Who is not for protecting speech and our beloved Constitution and the First Amendment? So does the gentleman from Maryland and our friends across the aisle really believe that? And then when I heard about slippery slope and setting a precedent. On February 4th, 2021, Marjorie Taylor Greene was removed from her committees for things that she said before she was a member of Congress.
You know, I didn't even think of that. That's true. That's the slippery slope right there. And for those of you who don't remember, 2021, let's see if you remember who was in charge of the House of Representatives. I'll give you a hint. It wasn't the Republicans.
November 17th, 2021, Paul Gosar was censured for a cartoon that his staff posted. Tasteless cartoon, though it be, that was speech.
That's true as well. That was speech that was not directly from Gosar, but he was censured nonetheless. Come to think of it, yeah, the slippery slope has already been established by Democrats. And now, much like the nuclear option with the Senate filibuster, the House of Representatives, the House Democrats, are getting a taste of their own medicine, and ooh, that's bitter.
So we're protecting speech, are we? Speech that we disagree with. Calling the deliberate killing of innocent civilians resistance. Claiming a bombing of a Gaza hospital was done by the Israelis that killed hundreds of people when we knew that was not true, and yet Ms. Tlaib doubled and tripled down on that. That was false and that was a lie. And then repeating and celebrating a genocidal chant from the river to the sea. That's not a cartoon, and that's not saying some things that you said before you were a member of Congress. And then we were accused of, oh, it's Islamophobic, or pointed out that she was a woman of color, or she's the only Palestinian. What does any of that matter? This is...
Yes! Making the point I was trying to make as well. What does it matter what Rashida Tlaib's background is, what her skin tone is? It has nothing to do with the reasoning for this resolution. Great stuff here.
About words and actions, and we hold everyone to the same standard. We're not trying to jail her. We're not trying to expel her. We're not levying a civil fine. We're not even talking about removing her from committees. We're simply firmly and formally disagreeing with her and chastising her for her words and her actions. What she did was not leadership. It was demagoguery of the worst kind, and it was beneath the dignity of this office, her office, and the alleged commitment to peace she claims. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Wow, what a great job there by Fallon. I couldn't say it better myself. I don't even think I'm going to try to. That's really everything I have to say. Although I wouldn't have done the whole demagoguery thing and beneath the office. I think all of us know that these days nothing's beneath the office of anyone in government, especially those in Congress. But hey, that's just my opinion. I want to know what you guys think about all this. You've seen all the evidence. You saw the allegations in the resolution. You heard the defense of Rashida Tlaib by her closest allies. And you heard the reply from a very articulate member of Congress. Let me know what you think. Should Rashida Tlaib have been censured, or should this have been not taken up at all? Let me know in the comments. And while you're in the comments, please be sure to also like and share the show with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. Let's have another conversation about Rashida Tlaib and her actions and the consequences of those actions. And if you want to talk about anything else, let me know. Maybe you have an idea for a video. We can have a conversation about just about any kind of shenanigans and buffoonery that happen every day this week in Dumbmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.